The proposal that shook the galaxy, the Galactic Council Hall, was full of tension. Ambassadors from over 30 species sat quietly. Their eyes focused on the two main parties. On one side was Earth's representative, Commander Elias Grant, a decorated war hero turned diplomat. On the other side was Valari of Zareth, the youngest ambassador in her empire's history. Known for her icy poise and unmatched intelligence, this meeting was the final step in a fragile peace process between Earth and the Zarethi Empire. The room was silent as Elias stood to speak. His voice was calm, practiced, and respectful. "I come not as a soldier, but as a servant of peace," he said, bowing slightly. Valari nodded slowly, her silver eyes studying him with unreadable emotion when it was her turn to speak. She rose from her chair with grace. The room grew even quieter. Her long, flowing robes shimmered like starlight, and her presence pulled everyone's attention. She looked around the chamber, then locked eyes with Elias. And then, something unexpected happened. "I propose," Valari said, her voice echoing across the chamber, "that I marry the human." A long silence followed. No one moved, no one blinked. Even Elias was frozen in place. Had he heard her right? Marriage. Was this a translation error? A political tactic? Or some alien tradition humans didn't know? Murmurs broke out across the hall. The Arvox ambassador dropped his ceremonial cup. A reporter bot nearly crashed into the ceiling. The human officials behind Elias leaned forward in confusion. But Valari didn't flinch. Her eyes stayed locked on Elias's, and she repeated the words again, slower this time. "I, Valari of Zarath, offer a marriage bond to Commander Elias." Grant Elias felt his heart thudding in his chest. He had faced war, betrayal, decay, and deadly negotiations. But this was different. His voice barely found its way out. "Why?" he asked, trying to keep his composure. "Why would you do this?" Valari glanced at the other ambassadors, then spoke directly to the council. "To protect this fragile peace," she said, "we must show the galaxy that our people are united, not just by words, but by blood." One of the Earth advisors whispered in Elias's ear, "She's cornering us. This might be a trick." Another said, "Accepting could mean permanent diplomatic ties." Elias, however, ignored them. He kept looking at Valari, and then he saw it. Her eyes were trembling, just slightly. Behind her confidence was something else. Fear, desperation. Valari raised her hand and requested a private chamber. The council hesitated, but agreed. Inside the secure meeting room, away from the ears of the galaxy, she finally spoke the truth. "This is not about romance," she said quietly. "My people are watching me, and if I don't do something bold, they will kill me." Elias sat silently. Letting her words settle, she pulled out a small data crystal and placed it on the table. "This contains evidence of a plan by the High Council to sabotage the peace talks and blame it on humans. If they succeed," she continued, "our two species will go to war. Millions will die." Elias picked up the crystal, examining it carefully. He was no stranger to lies, but something about her tone was too raw, too real. "You could have asked for asylum," he said. She shook her head. "Then they'd say I ran away in fear, and I'd lose all respect. But if I marry you, a human, they'll be confused, divided, they'll be forced to hold their attack." At least for now. Elias leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "This isn't just diplomacy anymore," he whispered. "No," Valari said softly. "This is survival." He stood up, walked to the small viewing window, and stared at the stars. In the distance, planets sparkled like jewels, but the darkness between them was deep and cold. He thought of the lives that would be lost if war erupted. He thought of the message this union would send. He thought of her, standing there with courage and quiet fear. Finally, he turned back to her. "Then let's give them a reason to hesitate." he said. Valari exhaled a breath she didn't know. She was holding, "Thank you, Elias," she whispered. "But understand this, from now on, your life will never be safe again." He gave a small smile. It never was. Outside the chamber, the media storm was already rising. Galactic broadcasts ran the breaking headline: Zerathi ambassador proposes marriage to human peace or provocation. And in the shadows of the galaxy, those who feared unity began to sharpen their knives. But for Elias and Valari, there was no turning back. The proposal had been made, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Behind her eyes, a secret message, the news spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Valari's proposal wasn't just a diplomatic surprise, it was a scandal. Alien channels debated if it was a cultural misunderstanding or a deep strategic play. Some called her brave, others called her mad. But only a few knew the truth hidden behind her eyes. Commander Elias Grant had seen many strange things in his career, but nothing compared to the moment a female alien ambassador whispered that her own people wanted her dead. Now, as he sat in his quarters aboard the Earth vessel Unity Dawn, he replayed her words again and again. "This is survival," she had said. But survival from what? Assassination? Betrayal? Civil war? And why him? Why choose a human of all people? Suddenly, his tablet buzzed. A message appeared on the screen with no sender, no subject, just a blinking icon. Elias tapped it, and the image of Valari appeared. It wasn't live. It was a recording. Her voice was soft, urgent, and unlike her usual calm speeches. "If you are watching this, Elias," she said, "then I have failed to reach you in time. My people believe I have betrayed them. But the truth is worse. I have discovered a secret they would kill to hide. They plan to unleash a planetary weapon disguised as a peace signal, aimed at Earth's embassies." Her eyes filled with pain. "I can't stop them alone," she whispered. "But you still have power they don't expect." The screen flickered and cut to encrypted schematics, blueprints of a Zerathi weapon buried beneath their main council building. It looked like a communication hub, but the energy readings were far too high. It wasn't built for diplomacy. It was built for extinction. Elias slammed his fist on the table. If this was real, it meant the peace talks were just a distraction. He called for Captain Myra, head of Earth's security on the Unity Dawn. She arrived within minutes, tall, sharp-eyed, and always suspicious. "Let me guess," she said. "Alien lover sends you a love letter and a death threat, all in one." Elias didn't smile. "More like a warning, Myra," he said, showing her the data crystal Valari had left him earlier. She took it and plugged it into the secure console. Her eyes widened as she scanned through the files. "This isn't a joke," she muttered. "These plans are classified even from their lower ministers who gave this to her." "She said it was her sister," Elias replied slowly. "Valari's younger sister works in the Zerathi Science Ministry. She found something and passed it on, but now both sisters are targets." Captain Myra looked at him carefully. "You're risking your life for this ambassador." "Why?" Elias didn't answer immediately. He remembered the look in Valara's eyes, not just fear, but something else. Trust, hope. She didn't see him as just a political tool. She saw him as a lifeline, maybe even more. "I don't know," he finally said, "but I believe her." Meanwhile, on the Zerathi flagship docked at the station, Valari stood alone in her chamber. She had just finished her own meeting with her superiors, and it had not gone well. They demanded she withdraw the proposal immediately. They threatened to revoke her diplomatic status. She refused. Now, her own guards had been replaced with silent figures in black armor, the Emperor's personal watchers. Valari walked to the mirror and stared at herself. Once, she had dreamed of changing her people, with words and wisdom. But now she realized something harsh. Sometimes, change needed sacrifice. She touched the glass and whispered to her reflection, "Hold the line, Valari. even if you stand alone. Suddenly, a soft knock came at her door. It wasn't one of her guards, it was her handmaiden, or so it seemed. The woman stepped in and placed a folded note on Valari's bed, then bowed and quickly left. Valari opened the note with trembling fingers. It was from her sister, written in code only. They shared from childhood. One line chilled her blood. They found me. Delete all messages. Trust no one, even your guards. Valari burned the note instantly, her heart pounding. She looked at her comms panel, then at the hidden drawer beneath her desk. Inside, it was the last tracking beacon, a one-use emergency device linked to Earth's command. If she activated it, Earth's forces would know she was in danger. But it would also expose her position. She hesitated on the Unity Dawn. Elias watched as the files finished decrypting. Captain Myra turned to him. If this intel is right, I'll try something during the Council Summit tomorrow. You going? Elias stood and nodded. If Valari's risking everything, then so am I, and far above the stars, in the cold heart of the Zerathi fleet. Someone whispered into a hidden communicator. The human knows. Proceed to Phase 2. The game had changed. And it was no longer just about peace. It was about survival for two people from different worlds who now shared the same fate. The assassin in the mirror, the sun over Zerathi Prime, never truly rose. Instead, the sky shimmered with pale light filtered through 3 translucent moons inside the crystal towers of the Council Wing. The halls looked calm, but death was already walking quietly, and it wore the face of someone trusted. Commander Elias Grant woke early that morning, dressed in formal diplomatic gear, and walked toward the central summit room. Today was the day the Zerathi and Earth delegates would sign the peace scroll. A final ceremony to show unity, but Elias's mind wasn't on the speeches. It was on Valari. He hadn't seen her since the private message and a hidden data crystal. Every hour since, he felt as if invisible hands were shifting events behind curtains. Every smile from a guard looked slightly forced. Every door opened a little too slowly. He had been in war zones before, and now his instincts screamed that danger was near. Meanwhile, Valari stood in her private chamber, staring at herself in the tall glass mirror. She adjusted the ceremonial headpiece and watched her reflection. But something felt wrong. There was a flicker in the mirror, a shape, a figure not behind her, but inside. She blinked, and it was gone. Still, her hands trembled as she reached for her dagger, hidden in her belt. Her door chimed. Ambassador Valari, it is time. A voice called from the hallway. She opened the door slowly, expecting her usual escort. Instead, a tall Zerathi guard stood there, face hidden. Silent, unfamiliar. I thought Ellerin was assigned today, she said quietly. The guard didn't answer, just turned and began walking down the hall. Valari followed cautiously, eyes on his hands. She sensed something cold in the air. Something not right. On the other side of the tower, Elias stepped into the summit chamber. The stage was set, polished stone floors, glowing banners of peace, and seats filled with powerful beings from across the galaxy. He nodded to Earth's ambassador, then scanned the room. No sign of Valari yet. But something caught his eye. A shimmer behind one of the pillars, too still, too quiet. Suddenly, the lights flickered. A scream echoed through the corridor. Everyone stood in shock as a side door burst open and Valari stumbled in, her ceremonial robes torn, hair disheveled, dagger in hand and blood trailing behind her. Behind her, a figure in black armor crashed through the doorway. Blade drawn. Get down, Elias shouted, drawing his emergency pulse gun from his sleeve. The assassin lunged, moving too fast for a normal Zerathi. Valari fell backward, rolling across the floor. Elias stepped forward and fired, the blast striking the attacker in the chest. The figure dropped with a loud metallic thud. Security forces rushed in, weapons drawn. Delegates screamed. Some fled, others stood frozen. Elias ran to Valari and knelt beside her. She was bleeding from a cut across her ribs, but she was alive. "Why didn't you call for help?" Elias asked, voice tense. Valari looked up, her lips trembling. "I did," she whispered. "I triggered the beacon, but they cut the signal halfway. They were already in my room, Elias. They were in the mirror." Elias didn't understand at first, but then remembered something from the data crystal experimental stealth tech, holographic cloaking, even mirror displacement. Prototypes only the Zarathi elite had access to. This wasn't just political pressure. This was a planned execution. And someone in the council had authorized it. The fallen assassin's helmet was removed. Gasps filled the room. It was Ellerin, the guard Valari had trusted for years, but his eyes were blank, pupils like glass. He was brainwashed, said. A medical AI or controlled Valari's hands curled into fists. "They're turning my own people into weapons," she whispered. Elias helped her to her feet. Blood stained her white robes, and the peace ceremony was now soaked in chaos. Yet her voice did not shake when she said, "Bring me a microphone, I'm speaking now." She stood before the delegates, wounded, proud, and fierce. "The Zarathi High Council has been compromised," she declared. "I have been targeted by my own people because I seek peace, not war. If you still believe in unity, stand with me. If not, step aside." For a long moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, the delegate from the Moran species stood and clapped, followed by the Tolan ambassador. And then several more. Elias stood behind Valari as a wall of cameras pointed at her. The universe was watching, but in a dark room, far away from the light. Another figure watched the live broadcast. Phase 2 failed. The voice said coldly, "Proceed to Phase 3, end both of them." Valari and Elias didn't know it yet, but what began as a political alliance had now become a fight for truth, and behind every mirror, an enemy might be waiting. A bond stronger than war. Valari lay on the medical table. Her eyes half open. The cuts on her body were deep, but not fatal. What hurt more was the betrayal. Her own guard, her most trusted protector, had tried to kill her, and he had smiled while doing it. Commander Elias stood just outside the chamber, fists clenched. He could still hear the sound of Elara's voice during the summit. Defiant, proud, bleeding, she had risked everything to speak the truth, and now he was starting to realize something. This wasn't just a mission anymore. He had crossed that line without knowing it. He cared for her. Far more than a diplomat should. Dr. Nira, the Earthship's medical AI, stepped out to speak with Elias. "She's healing well," the AI said. "But her body chemistry is complex. She needs emotional stability as much as rest. She needs someone she trusts near her." Elias didn't hesitate. "I'll go," he said. He entered the room quietly. Valari turned her head slowly, offering a weak smile. "Still here, human," she whispered. Elias chuckled softly, pulling a chair beside her. "You think I'd leave after all that? You bleed in front of the entire galaxy, and still make a speech. I've seen generals cry for less." Valari's smile grew, just a little. But there was something fragile in her expression, as if she wanted to speak but didn't know how. Elias leaned forward. "What is it?" he asked gently. She closed her eyes, gathering courage. "There's something ancient in our culture," she began, "a ceremony that binds to souls before death or war. We call it Corelvin, the last trust. It's not marriage, not quite, it's deeper. It means we offer our final breath to the one we believe in. If we die, they live." Elias was quiet. The idea was alien to him, but not unfamiliar. He had seen soldiers throw themselves in front of grenades, friends take bullets for each other. But this was something sacred. "Are you saying you want that with me?" he asked, voice low. Valari turned her head toward him fully. I already gave it Elias, she said. I just didn't tell you. The room fell silent. Outside, the stars drifted by, unaware of the words spoken inside. Then, Elias stood up and removed the small earth medallion from around his neck, a symbol given only to those who'd earned the highest military trust. He placed it on the table beside her hand. I never gave this to anyone, he said. Not even my own commanders. Now it's yours. Valerie touched it slowly, as if afraid it might disappear in that small act. They had created something powerful. Not a treaty, not a weapon, but a bond no war could destroy. Later that night, they left the Earth ship together. The Council had declared a temporary ceasefire while an internal investigation began. But Valari knew it wouldn't last. They needed to disappear for a while, somewhere safe. So she took Elias to a place few had ever seen. A moon orbiting the edge of Zarathi territory. Cold, quiet, hidden. It was called Carix. Meaning place of secrets, there stood an ancient Zarathi temple half buried in stone and time. No soldiers, no cameras, no politics, only silence. They stayed inside a small chamber beneath the temple. There was no bed. Only warm stone floors and flickering blue firelight. Elias sat near the wall, wrapping a thermal cloak around himself. Valari sat across from him, her wounds mostly healed. She removed her ceremonial jewelry and finally looked free. Just a woman, not an ambassador. You never asked me what I wanted, she said suddenly. Elias raised an eyebrow. What do you want? He asked. Valari looked up at the ceiling where stars shined through the cracks. I want to walk through the market without being followed. I want to laugh and not worry who's recording it. I want to eat fruit without scanning it for poison. I want peace, not just between species, but inside my own heart. Elias nodded slowly. I've been a soldier for too long, he said. Fought too many wars for men who never came near the front lines. This mission was supposed to be my rest. But then I met you. She looked at him. Do you regret it? He smiled. Only that I didn't meet you sooner. Their eyes met, and in that silence, something deeper than words was exchanged. Not desire, not lust, but understanding. They were both broken in different ways, but maybe together. They could heal outside the temple, unknown to them. A silent drone hovered in the shadows, its red light blinking, its camera locked on their location. A voice whispered across encrypted channels. They've gone to Carix. Proceed to Phase 3. Trial of the Blood Moon. The blood moon rose red over the hidden moon of Carix. It wasn't just a rare celestial event. It was sacred. To the ancient Zarathi, it marked a time when lies could not live. A time when truth burned through the soul, leaving only what was real inside the old temple. Valari stood barefoot in front of the cracked stone altar. Her robes had been replaced with ceremonial cloth wrapped in golden threads. Elias stood beside her, unsure and quiet. Torches burned low around them, casting long shadows. This place, Valari said softly, was used for trials long before my people traveled the stars. It judged leaders not by words, but by heart. Elias nodded slowly. I'm guessing this isn't about diplomacy, Ati said. Valari looked at him, eyes steady. If we want to survive this war, Elias, Ati, we need something stronger than peace treaties. We need the people to believe in us, not as officials, but as bonded souls. And this trial will decide if we're worthy. Before Elias could ask more, the floor beneath the altar shifted. Revealing a spiral staircase, they descended together, torchlight guiding them into the depths of the mountain. At the bottom was a room carved from living stone, circular, echoing, and cold. 3 flame orbs floated above ancient pillars. Valari stepped into the center and turned to Elias. To complete the trial of the blood moon, she said, we must each face 3 challenges, one of the mind, one of the body, and one of the heart. If we succeed, the temple marks us with. The Shireen, the sacred bond, no law can break if we fail. We are forgotten. Elias took a deep breath. Let's do it, he said. The first trial began with a flash of light. Suddenly, Elias was alone, standing in a black void. A voice filled the space, soft but sharp. Who are you when no one is watching? It asked. Visions formed soldiers he had failed to save. Friends lost in war, civilians he couldn't reach in time. Elias fell to his knees, haunted by guilt. But then another voice echoed. Valaris, you carry weight. Elias. But you never stopped walking. He stood again, looked the vision in the eye, and whispered, I don't forget them, but I move forward for them. The vision shattered, and the void turned to light. Meanwhile, Valaris stood before a vision. Of her own, a giant version of her father appeared, cold and unblinking. You betray your bloodline, the figure said. You shame our ancestors by loving a human. Valari trembled, but didn't break. I don't betray my people. I fight for their future. She said. The image roared in anger and vanished into smoke. She had passed. The second trial tested their bodies. Elias was dropped into a chamber with no doors, no weapons, and a beast with gleaming eyes. But the beast didn't attack. It circled, watching him. Then Elias realized it mirrored him. Every move he made, it copied. He closed his eyes, slowed his breathing, and let go of fear. The beast bowed its head and disappeared. It was never meant to be killed, only understood. Valari's body trial was different. She walked barefoot across sharp crystal shards, a test of pain and silence. Each step drew blood, but she kept moving. At the center of the path, she collapsed. But instead of crying out, she began to hum a lullaby, the same one her mother sang when she was small. The crystals softened under her song, glowing gently. She passed without a scream. Now came the final trial, the trial of the heart. They were placed face to face. In the center of the chamber, a flame hovered between them. The voice returned, one of you may walk away. It said, the other must stay forever. Elias's jaw tightened. What happens to the one who stays? He asked. They are bound to the temple, never to speak, only to protect it for all time. The voice replied. Valari's eyes shimmered with emotion. This is cruel, she whispered. Elias reached out and held her hand. No, he said gently. This is the truth. What are we willing to sacrifice? Then, without hesitation, Elias stepped forward. I'll stay, he said. Valari gasped. No, don't you dare. But the flame suddenly flared, and the voice laughed. You both passed, it said. The true heart is not in sacrifice, but in the willingness to offer it. The chamber filled with warm light. A mark appeared on both their palms, a glowing spiral that pulsed with life. The Shiren, their bond was sealed as they rose. Back into the open sky of Carix, the blood moon hung high above. Elias and Valari stood hand in hand, stronger than before. Not just allies, not just lovers, but bound souls, and far away, in the dark corridors of a Zirathi warship, a general slammed his fist on the console. The bond has been made, he growled. Then we kill them together. The council's fury, the blood moon, had not yet faded when warships arrived over Carix. Valari and Elias watched from the ancient temple steps as dark shadows moved across the sky. Zarathi cruisers, shaped like blades, formed a tight blockade. One of them, larger than the rest, bore the markings of the Emperor's Guard. They hadn't come to talk. They had come to destroy. Valari's breath caught in her throat. She knew that ship. It belonged to General Vikthal, the man who once called her a sister. Now he led the death sentence written for her name. They're going to bomb the temple, she said quietly. Elias tapped his wristband, opening Earth's secure frequency. "This is Commander Grant Carrick's is under threat," he said, requesting extraction. Static answered him. "Their jammers are up," Elias muttered. "We're alone." Valari turned to him. "Eyes hard, not yet," she said. She led him down the side of the temple into a carved path lit by old crystals. "It's a smuggler's route," she explained. "We use it when diplomats need to disappear behind them." The temple shook as the first warning blast hit the surface. Stone cracked and fire danced in the air. They ran through the passage, dodging falling rocks and blinding dust. Outside, Zarathi troops began descending from dropships, black armor, red visors, no mercy. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Peace Summit had fallen into silence. News of the attack on Carrick's had leaked into secret channels. A few brave ambassadors began asking questions. Why attack during a sacred trial? Why silence the only diplomat brave enough to speak of corruption? Back on Carrick's, Elias and Valari emerged from the tunnel near a cliff. A small tent hangar waited below, filled with dust and silence. A single ship rested there. Half covered in vines and cobwebs, Elias stared at it. "That's a Zarathi scout-class stealth vessel," he said. Valari smiled faintly. "My sister used to call it her escape egg. She hid it here in case one of us ever needed to vanish." They powered it up, but the engines groaned in protest. "She hasn't flown in years," Valari warned. Elise rolled up his sleeves. "Then let's remind her how," as they worked on the old systems. The temple behind them was completely engulfed in flames. General Vikthal watched from his command deck, expression cold. "No signs of escape," one of his officers reported. "Then turn the mountain to dust," he ordered. No survivors inside the hangar. The ship roared to life. Engines burning bright. The ground shook as the mountain began to collapse under missile fire. Valari and Elias launched just as the hangar crumbled behind them. Rocks exploded upward, chasing the small ship into the sky. They dodged debris, energy blasts, and enemy fire. The old scout vessels screamed through the atmosphere like a reborn phoenix. But their escape was short-lived. Enemy fighters gave chase, sleek, fast, and merciless. Valari took the pilot seat while Elias manned the defense systems. "This was not how I expected my morning," he muttered, firing plasma bursts. Valari grinned despite the danger. "You humans always want coffee and quiet." She joked. "Welcome to Zarathi breakfast." Their ship took a hit. Sparks flew. Warnings blared, shields down to 20%. Elias shouted. Valari clenched her teeth. "We can't outrun them. We need help." At that moment, the stars above flickered. A ripple tore through space, and a massive Earth destroyer. Uncloaked, the ESS Obsidian Wing, Earth's most feared Black Ops battleship. No one had seen it in 5 years. Rumors claimed it had been decommissioned. But here it was guns armed, shields glowing. And its captain was none other than Admiral Cale Torres, Elias's former mentor, Commander Grant, the Admiral's. Voice came through their speaker, deep and thunderous. "Need a lift?" Elias exhaled with relief. "More than you know, sir." The Obsidian Wing opened fire. Massive beams tore through the enemy ships like paper. Valari's eyes widened. That's not just a warship," she whispered. "That's a message." Elias nodded. Earth just took a side, with the enemy fleet scattered. Valari and Elias docked aboard the destroyer. They were met by Admiral Torres, gray-bearded, firm, but proud. "Your little vacation caused quite a stir," he said to Elias. "And your new friend," he added. Nodding to Valari, "She's starting a movement without knowing it." Valari stepped forward. "This isn't just about us anymore," she said. "The people are rising. I've received thousands of hidden transmissions. Zarathi citizens are ready to stand against the Council. They just need hope." The Admiral looked between them, then toward the stars. "Then we give them something to believe in." A marriage that changed the stars, the ESS. Obsidian Wing hovered in stealth near the asteroid field of Sector 9Z. Below, 1,000 rebel transmissions buzzed across frequencies. Voices from Zerathi workers, students, exiles, and hidden warriors. They weren't just angry. They were ready. Valari stood in the command center, dressed in light armor stitched with silver threads, not a robe of peace, not a dress of ceremony. She wore the clothing of someone ready to walk into fire and return with flames. Elias stood beside her, his earth insignia replaced with a simple black band, no ranks, no medals, just a man who had chosen to fight, not for war, but for her, and through her, for something greater. The council still claimed Valari was a traitor. The Emperor had placed a bounty on her head, and yet she had more support than ever. People from across systems sent her messages. "We believe you. Lead us. Don't stop." Admiral Torres stepped forward with a data chip. "This is the communication tower on Zereth Prime," he said. "If we override its signal for 5 minutes, we can stream your message to every home, every school, every hidden rebel cell. But once we do, there's no going back." Valari took the chip with steady hands. "I don't want to go back," she said. "I want to go forward with truth." "And with him," she added, glancing at Elias. Elias nodded. "Let's wake the galaxy." He said the plan was dangerous. Valari and Elias would land on Zeroth Prime in disguise, sneak into the old broadcasting tower, and upload the speech once it played. Earth forces would launch distraction attacks on Council weapon sites too. Buy them time to escape, but Valari had a different idea. "I'm not escaping," she said. "I'm staying." Everyone in the room turned to her. "If I flee again," she continued, "they'll say I'm a coward, a rebel hiding behind humans, but if I speak and remain, I become a symbol." Elias stepped forward, gripping her shoulders. "You'll die," he said quietly. Valari smiled softly. "Only if I'm alone," she replied. And that's when Elias did something no one expected. He knelt, right there, on the ship's floor, pulled a silver ring from his pocket. It wasn't Earth's military issue. It was hand-forged, shaped from the remains of a bullet that nearly killed him long ago. "I don't have a home anymore," he said. "But if you'll let me, I'll be yours." Valari's eyes filled with tears, not from weakness, but because, in that moment, she realized something stronger than rebellion. Hope. She knelt too. And in front of the crew, the rebels, and a universe burning with tension. They exchanged vows, not under stars or flowers, but under blinking lights and gunmetal walls. "I take you as my bond, my anchor, my storm, and my calm." Valari whispered. Elias answered, "And I take you as my flame, my shield." And the voice that woke my soul, no ceremony was planned. But the universe itself seemed to pause, and on that warship, a marriage was formed, not just between two hearts, but between two worlds. The next day, they landed, Valari and Elias, moved through the underground network guided by loyalists. Disguised as workers, they passed checkpoints and reached the tower inside. An old control room still hummed with forgotten power. They uploaded the speech, and Valari stood in front of the camera. No makeup, no scripts, no filters. "People of Zereth," she said, "I am not your enemy. I am your voice, the voice they tried to silence. I married a human not for politics, but because he believed in me when no one else did. If loving truth makes me a traitor, then I accept it. But if you still remember who we used to be, builders, dreamers, singers of stars, then stand with me." The message broadcast across the galaxy. Millions saw it. Millions more felt something shift inside their chests. Soldiers laid down weapons. Students painted walls with her symbol, the spiral mark of the Shirin. Even members of the High Council began to whisper doubts. But not all turned. General Vikthal sent kill drones. The tower was bombed minutes later. Smoke filled the Sky, debris rained down. Everyone believed Valari was dead until a week later. She appeared on every screen again, standing on a mountain with Elias behind her. Scarred, burned, but alive. And she said only 4 words. "We're not done yet." From that day forward, they weren't just lovers. They were a movement. The human and the alien. The bond that defied war. The marriage that changed the stars.